2014 rules for boys youth lacrosse. The U.S. Lacrosse boys youth rules are to govern play at the U15 level and below. The rules are modifications to the NFHS 2014 boys lacrosse rules based on the cognitive and physical abilities of youth athletes. U.S. Lacrosse youth rules are designed to place emphasis on the proper development of individual skills, team play, player safety, and sportsmanship. The 2014 rules for boys youth lacrosse can be found starting on page 94 of the 2014 NFHS Boys Lacrosse Rulebook or online at www.uslacrosse.org/rules. 2014 Boys Youth Rules Points of Emphasis. U.S. Lacrosse endorses the points of emphasis in the 2014 NFHS Boys Lacrosse Rules and adds the following points of emphasis for youth play: violent collisions and sportsmanship. Violent collisions. The U.S. Lacrosse youth rules call specific attention to violent collisions in the game. Some body contact is permitted at all levels of boys youth lacrosse, with progressively more age-appropriate contact permitted as players become more physically mature and learn proper checking techniques. Sports medicine research indicates the severity of certain injuries may be reduced if a player can anticipate and prepare himself for an oncoming hit, and also indicates that peripheral vision may not be fully developed in many boys before the age of 15. Therefore, there is no justification for deliberate and excessively violent collisions by any player at the youth level, especially intentional player-to-player collisions with defenseless players, checks to the head or neck, and excessive body or takeout checks. Both NFHS and U.S. Lacrosse rules more clearly define such collisions and in many cases increase the penalties that prohibit them. Officials should be applying these rules and utilize the more severe penalty options when they occur. Coaches are encouraged to coach players to avoid delivering such checks and to support the officials when such penalties occur and are called by the officials. All participants must work together to reduce or eliminate such violent collisions from the game. These next clips demonstrate the violent collisions that occur and need to be removed from the game. In this first clip during a U15 boys game, watch as the players are competing for a loose ball. The gold midfielder enters into the play and delivers a takeout check to the white defenseman. This play is an example of the type of contact that should be penalized at the youth level of play. In this next clip during a U13 contest, watch as a pass gets batted down and as the two players collide going towards the loose ball. This is an example of a violent collision at the youth level that should be penalized. Sportsmanship. Unsportsmanship-like conduct by coaches, player, or spectators degrades the experience for youth players and erodes the integrity and appeal of the sport. Unsportsmanlike behavior will not be tolerated. Obscenities need not be used in order for language to draw a penalty. Tone, intent, and body language can all contribute to unsportsmanlike conduct. Players, coaches, and spectators should exhibit the highest level of sportsmanship at all times. Officials are requested to enforce these unsportsmanlike conduct rules without hesitation and expect coaches to promote good sportsmanship among players and anybody associated with the team, including spectators. All programs should institute a sideline manager program in an effort to invest the community with the responsibility for seeing that good sportsmanship is the rule rather than the exception. For more information on establishing a sideline manager and sportsmanship program, please visit www.uslacrosse.org/sportsmanship. Goalie equipment. The goalie in boys lacrosse requires equipment that fits and is worn properly. Shoes, approved helmet, throat guard, mouth guard, chest protector, arm pads, cup with supporter, gloves, and a goalie stick are all required equipment for youth goalies. Chest protection needs to fit properly so there is no space between the throat guard and chest area. The entire chest region must be covered, and the chest protector must be long enough to protect the lower abdomen as well. Arm pads should be fitted to the body to allow mobility and worn over the elbow to ensure protection. A properly molded mouthguard is required. It must be of a color, not clear or white. A helmet should not be loose and should not fall into your vision. Be sure it fits snug to the head and stay still with the chin strap secure. All helmets must meet the NOCSE test standard. The throat guard must be attached to the helmet and cover the throat area. There should be little to no space between the helmet and the throat protector. Gloves complete the protective equipment and should fit snug to the fingertips. The palms of the glove should be intact and should never be altered. Lastly, the stick. A goalie stick is his tool of the trade. Each player's stick is unique to the player's style and skill level. Be sure your stick length and pocket meet the U.S. Lacrosse youth guidelines and rules of the game. In addition to the requirements stated in the NFHS rules for required equipment for goalies, the 2014 Boys Youth Rules require that all goalkeepers are required to wear arm pads. Goalkeepers also may wear but are not required to wear shin, knee, and thigh pads if they choose. Player equipment. Boys lacrosse requires equipment that fits and is worn properly. Shoes, rib guard, shoulder pads, arm pads, gloves, mouth guard, approved helmet, cup with supporter, and a stick complete the list of equipment utilized by field players. Rib guards, shoulder pads, arm pads should be all fitted to the body to allow comfort and mobility and give the needed protection, as safety is the #1 priority. A properly molded mouth guard is required. It must be of a color, not clear or white. A helmet should not be loose and should not fall into your vision. Be sure it fits snug to the head and stay still with the chin strap secure. All helmets must meet the NOCSE test standard. Gloves complete the protective equipment and should fit snug to the fingertips. The palms of the glove should be intact and should never be altered. Lastly, the stick. A player's stick is his tool of the trade. Each player's stick is unique to the player's style and skill level. Be sure your stick length and pocket meet the U.S. Lacrosse youth guidelines and rules of the game. In addition to the requirements stated in the NFHS rules for player equipment, the Boys Youth Rules require that all players wear a protective cup. U.S. Lacrosse also highly recommends that rib pads be worn by all players. Crosse Dimensions. U.S. Lacrosse recommends that coaches assess players' size, strength, and skill in determining the proper long cross length for defensive players with the NFHS rules. U.S. Lacrosse further recommends that a long cross should not be taller than the player at any youth level. Cross dimensions at the U15 and U13 level must conform to NFHS or NCAA requirements. At the U11 level, the length of the cross for field players may be 37 to 42 inches or 47 to 54 inches for the long crosses. At the U9 level, all crosses for field players shall be 37 to 42 inches. 3-yard rule. In boys youth play, all legal stick checks, body checks, holds, or pushes must be on a player in possession of the ball or within 3 yards of a loose ball or ball in flight. This rule is a change from the 5 yards at the NFHS level and minimizes risk for the players. This rule does not apply to a restart, where all players must still be no less than 5 yards away from the player that will be restarting with the ball. Takeout and excessive body checks. Takeout checks or excessive body checks are prohibited at the U15 level and below. These types of checks are defined as any body check in which a player lowers his head or shoulder with the force and intent to put the other player on the ground. In addition, a body check considered more aggressive or more physical than necessary to stop the advancement of the player carrying the ball or to keep or move a player away from a loose ball shall be considered unnecessary roughness. The penalty for a takeout or excessive body check is a 2 to 3 minute non-releasable foul or an ejection at the official's discretion. Slashing. In addition to the rules on slashing covered in the NFHS rules of play, any one-handed check shall be considered a slash, whether or not it makes contact with the opposing player. This restriction applies to all youth age levels. Please watch the following clips for examples of one-handed checks at the youth level. In this first clip in a U15 contest, watch as the offensive player has a fast break towards the goal. The trailing defender delivers an uncontrolled one-handed check that is illegal at the youth level and should be penalized. In the second clip during a U11 contest, the clearing player has a break towards his offensive half when the trailing defender delivers a one-handed check that should be penalized as slashing at the youth level. Unnecessary roughness. U.S. lacrosse youth rules call attention to unnecessary roughness by making it a non-releasable foul. This includes, but is not limited to, deliberate or excessive violent contact, excessively violent infraction of the rules by pushing and holding, any avoidable act on the part of a player that is deliberate or excessive, or a check delivered with a punching blow with the gloved hands of a player. The penalty for this foul may be a 1 to 3 minute penalty. However, officials are encouraged to utilize the more severe penalties if a penalty occurs. This concludes the U.S. Lacrosse Youth Rules portion of this video. For more information on the U.S. Lacrosse Youth Rules of Play, please go to www.uslacrosse.org/rules. You may also refer to the U.S. Lacrosse Youth Rules and Best Practices Guidebook, published annually by U.S. Lacrosse and distributed to youth parents, coaches, and officials regarding these rules of play.